Hello, beautiful brains, and welcome in. For the handful of people that are following my journey, it's been a minute, and it brings me to what I want to talk about today. So I haven't made videos in a while. I do have ADHD, as I've explained before, and one of the beautiful things that comes along with ADHD are sometimes what we might call executive functioning challenges. And one of those challenges that I experience from time to time is activation. So this is where I struggle to get started on a task, no matter how much I really want to do it. And so as much as I've really wanted to share my journey is still ongoing, and I've been very open about that. Sometimes I just cannot, no matter how much I try, no matter how much I play it over in my head, I cannot take those thoughts and desires and activate them into actions, which is actually sitting down and making these videos. Which brings me to what I want to talk about today, which is a question that I do get asked. Did the ayahuasca journey I went on heal or cure my ADHD? And to answer that very quickly without explanation, no, it did not. But what it did do is it absolutely has changed my brain, and I can feel what we would call neuroplasticity. So these changes that are happening, not feel as in, oh, I physically feel my brain changing, but there's a lot more awareness that's gone on, different levels of consciousness. So basically, if I go into describing what it's like now in my brain, I'm at the risk of sounding like I have schizophrenia or another personality disorder, but it is like having different selves inside one mind now, which is really interesting. So before I was very much just taken by my ADHD mind, which brought along things like depression, perseverative thoughts, so overthinking things, getting stuck in ritualistic patterns, really struggling with activation and things that would take intrinsic motivation. So just taking care of yourself. So the only reason you do that is because you have this inside motivation that some might refer to as self-love to help you want to do those things, make better meals for yourself, go to the gym, get outside, all of those really positive things. So living very deeply and lost in my own ADHD, I didn't do any of those things. And again, perseverative thinking, I worked very hard at helping other people, and in the behavioral work that I was doing, it was very important to me, and that is where I used my hyper focus. So because it was very interesting, I absolutely love to understand the human mind, what makes humans tick, what makes people do the things they do. So it had no problem really activating my hyper focus in those ways. But then I would come home after days of work, and rather than doing things for myself and take care of myself, I would sit in perseverative thought and overthink every single interaction that I had that day. And sometimes I visited upwards of 4 different families and was working on 4 different cases, 5, 6. Sometimes I'd have social groups, but my mind would want to come home and ruminate on that constantly. And it was one of those things that it helped me also forget the challenges that I was dealing with on my own. So the things that I thought about myself, I very much had this mind where the thought of being alone in my own quiet thoughts terrified me. So what it does is it creates things to distract myself with, so things to worry about work-based, right? But if I were to be asked to sit down consciously, for example, things that I was teaching other people to do, which is to sit down and meditate and just listen to your thoughts, notice your thoughts, pay attention to the types of thoughts you have. The very thought of getting into that and doing that action while I was recommending it to other people absolutely terrified me. And there's very few times in my life that I was actually able to sit down and get into a meditation without having a full-on panic attack. Anyhow, so that's how my brain had been operating, and I really started to notice it. The further on you're getting into life, you really are starting to notice the heavy weight of depression, the constant suicidal ideation, just wanting to give up, not really seeing a purpose in continuing on, but putting on a brave mask every day and, being very good at my work, having beautiful connections in the job that I had, and climbing very quickly, being responsible for other people's development, just a lot of inspired and great work. But on the inside and in the quiet of my own home, my own space, I was quietly suffering, and it was a nightmare. And so that's what led me to my ayahuasca journey. And I went on my experience, and I absolutely wanted it to change my life in every way possible. I didn't really think about ADHD and it changing that. I'd always, at that point, I had just accepted that ADHD had been a part of me and it's part of my brain, so I didn't really see there being the possibility of change, but it is something that comes up. And of course, loving neurology and being obsessed with human brain frequencies and patterns and neuroplasticity, I wanted to know and understand if it was something that was plausible for myself. And so here we are, all this time later, and I can say that, as I said, I do notice neuroplasticity happening in myself. I have the luxury of having this scientifically trained mind to monitor and track my own behavior. And so what ayahuasca has done, as I said, is that it's changed my consciousness, and then I now can step back and I watch myself and I see the different minds. That's the only way I can describe it, the different minds that exist inside my own head. And again, it sounds schizophrenic, but believe me, I've never been more sane and more level-headed in my life. But the way I like to describe them, I have my inner child, which, she went through a lot, and I've been working on nurturing her and caring for her and making her well. But I definitely know when she's having a thought and when her thoughts are leading in my mind, and I know how to now step in almost immediately and just calm her, soothe her, nurture her like any child needs, and sort of shape up those thoughts and make them healthier thoughts, or help her say goodbye to those thoughts, right? And I also know the difference between my ego mind and those thoughts and those fear-based thoughts, and when that comes into play. And I can also tell when I'm having higher level thinking, or what some would say, connecting to my soul, my divine connection to source. There's a million ways to perceive it, but I also like to think of that voice as my intuition. So that's my heart center voice, my connection there. So it's learning how to tell the difference between those different minds. And so where my ADHD comes in, I definitely notice that. And I would say that that's very much a part of my ego mind. And I see those behaviors happening. I see myself getting distracted. But I've learned how to work with myself, because again, it's like stepping outside and it's applying those strategies that I would help somebody else experiencing ADHD. And then it's like painful repetition. And so how to get that repetition to go? Again, super blessed in the fact that I have this background in behavioral sciences and I have a little bit of an understanding. I mean, obviously we all have lots to learn still continuously, but this understanding of what motivates humans, what makes them tick, how do they get things done, and looking at something like intrinsic motivation. And again, when I was deep working in behavioral sciences, I wanted to understand intrinsic motivation, but because I had very little of my own, I just didn't get it. I was motivated by social things, by what other people thought about me, or looking badly, and that's the type of thing. So that was more punishment based. So I performed and I behaved in certain ways to avoid punishment from other people, or looking badly, which would be deemed a punishment. But anyhow, so throughout this journey, what ayahuasca has also helped me work on, and I talk a little bit about that, is building up that deep sense of self-love. And from that, so when you truly love yourself and you're nurturing yourself and you're caring for yourself, as though you're nurturing and caring for a child that you love, it's really easy, not easy, but it's much easier to get things done when you, rather than hating yourself and feeling like you're a worthless piece of crap. That's really hard to motivate. But yeah, when you're looking at yourself as this inner child who needs you to keep her room clean, make your bed, do all those things, change your sheets when it's time, keep the bathroom tidy, all those things, you would want to do that if you're nurturing and caring for a child, if you're a healthy and well parent anyhow. So has ayahuasca cured myself of my neurodivergences? Absolutely not, but it's allowed me to appreciate it from a much healthier perspective. I work with myself now. I'm a lot more patient with myself. I don't rule with an iron fist anymore, getting frustrated with myself. That's how I was parented. So I kind of transferred that onto myself, and without realizing that that's not what I needed. I needed somebody to nurture me, to scaffold me, to discipline me. So a disciple is somebody that you look up to, that you follow. That's what the word discipline means. It's not yelling or punishing. It's scaffolding somebody, shaping them, guiding them so that they want to follow you and they're inspired and they're like, oh, I'm going to transfer that love that you've shown me into caring for myself, because now I know I'm worthy of that love, right? That's the ideal world, and not many of us get that in this day and age especially, but I feel like we're in a world that's working towards that and improving that every day. And so this is the work that we're all doing. And I'm just going to continue to share my story. And if it resonates, it resonates. And if it doesn't, you can leave it behind. At the end of the day, the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. Be good to yourself. And now for a word from our sponsor. Just kidding. No, some shameful self-promotion. I just like to remind people every once in a while that I wrote a book. You should check it out. The link is in my channel description or in the description of this video.